Welcome to the How to Play video for ICECOOL Wizards. In this game, players take turns flicking their penguin figures around the board and collecting lesson cards that can be traded in for exam cards, which provide magic points at the end of the game, because at the end of the game, the player with the most magic points wins. Setup. To set up the game, arrange the boxes in the center of the table like this. Make sure the doorways align and symbols match. Clip the boxes together with the box clips in the designated places. Then have each player choose a color and take the penguin figure and the ID card of that color. These are the lesson cards. Shuffle them and place the deck face down near the board. Draw the top 3 cards and place them face up in the matching classrooms or doorways. Cards in the doorways are placed so that the center of the card is on the doorway's threshold. If a drawn lesson card matches a lesson card already on the board, discard it and draw a new one so that there are 3 different lesson cards on the board. These are the exam cards. Shuffle them and place the deck face down near the board. Draw the top 6 exam cards and randomly place one face up in each dark blue card space in the corner of a room. Unlike lesson cards, there can be matching exam cards on the board. And that's the setup. Players' turns. The youngest player goes first. At the beginning of your first turn of the game, place your penguin on the starting spot. During your turn, you will take 2 flicks of your penguin, each from its current location. After each flick, see whether your penguin triggered any of the following actions. Number 1. If your penguin passed completely through a doorway with a lesson card, or visited a classroom with a lesson card, you may collect it. This includes the room in which you started your turn, and any rooms your penguin passed through or ended up in. Number 2. If your penguin touched 1 or more exam cards during or after the flick, you may discard the required number of lesson cards to take the exam cards. Place exam cards you collected face down next to your ID. Number 3. If your penguin made contact with 1 or more player penguins, you may exchange knowledge. To exchange knowledge, you may swap 1 face-up lesson card with each of the players whose penguins yours made contact with. Opposing players may not refuse the trade, and they have no say in which cards are exchanged. If multiple actions were triggered by your flick, you decide in which order to carry out these actions. How to flick. To flick your penguin figure, place your index finger near the bottom of the penguin and flick it forward. If you want your penguin to run around corners or make crazy turns, you must flick it on the side where you want it to turn. For example, if you flick your penguin's right side, it will rotate to the right. Wizarding School. The game board is divided into 5 classrooms, each surrounded by a yellow-black dashed line to mark its borders. A penguin is considered to be inside a classroom if it covers any part of that classroom floor. For example, this penguin is inside both the History of Penguin Magic classroom and Astrology classroom at the same time. If a player's penguin happens to fly out of the game board at any point during the game, put it back onto the game board on the exact spot where it was before the flick. If it was the active player's penguin, they lose their current flick. If it was the player's second flick, their turn ends. If a player's penguin is close to a wall or is stuck in a doorway, before a flick, the player may place it on the closest spot on the white line, free of other penguins, even if it is covered by a card. Spells. If owned by a player, these special lesson cards can be used as a spell, but only during the owning player's turn before or after one of that player's flicks. To use a spell, turn the card face down, and then apply the effect of the spell. Once used, the spell cannot be used again, nor may it be turned in for an exam card or exchanged for knowledge. A used spell, however, still earns 1 magic point at the end of the game. Now let's look at all the different spells you can cast. This spell gives you an extra flick. This spell lets you draw 2 lesson cards and place them on the board on matching spaces. As during game setup, if a drawn lesson card matches one already on the board, discard it and draw a new one. The water spell counts as a wild lesson card when taking an exam card. This is the only spell that is discarded instead of being placed face down in front of the player. When using the fire spell, all other players choose one of their face-up or face-down lesson cards, if they have any, To discard into the lesson card discard pile, players may choose to discard one of their face-down lesson cards. End of a player's turn. After you have made both flicks and collected any lesson and/or exam cards, check to see if you need to refill any lesson or exam cards by completing these 2 steps. Step 1. If there are fewer than 3 lesson cards remaining on the board, refill empty locations until there are exactly 3 lesson cards on the game board. If a drawn lesson card matches a lesson card already on the board, discard it and draw a new one until there are 3 different lesson cards on the board. If the deck runs out, reshuffle the lesson card discard pile and reform the lesson card deck. Step 2. Refill all empty dark blue exam card spaces in the corners of the rooms. If there are not enough exam cards in the exam deck to refill the empty dark blue card spaces, begin the end of the game phase. End of the game. The game ends when it is not possible to refill all dark blue card spaces with exam cards. Complete the current round so that each player has played the same number of turns. To determine the winner, each player adds up their magic points from their exam cards and face-up and face-down lesson cards. Each exam card is worth the number of magic points shown on it. Each lesson card is worth 1 magic point. The player with the most magic points wins and becomes the most powerful penguin wizard.